Welcome to beautiful Fort Hagen, where we'll be exploring all the nearby unmarked locations. It has everything from UFOs and aliens to sleeping death claws, as well as stolen tanks. Let's get started. First stop is Bruce. He resides over at Carhenge, adequate name. It is obviously based off the real life Stonehenge here in the UK, and Bruce is an artist, some would say. He's a massive super mutant behemoth. He is a little buggy and may or may not spawn at times, but when he does, of course you will have a fair fight in your hands. In the centre, you can find plenty of armour and some items for your journey. If you don't know where we are, of course, it is located south of Walden Pond and north of ArcJet Systems. But not to fear, there is a very close unmarked location right beside it. And not too far away from Bruce's art project, you can find this abandoned bus. On board is a dead raider. Now, once you loot his body, the question remains, how did he end up here? Now, perhaps he sought some refuge after trying to battle with Bruce over at Carhenge. And I would imagine Bruce won handily. Maybe he killed a few of his comrades, but there's no other bodies in the vicinity. Just this one lonely guy. Now, it may have not been the case. Instead, he could have been battling some blood bugs even closer over here at this abandoned shed. Now, this does have a fusion core for the taking of any would-be adventurer, and there is a toolbox you can pick clean in here. It seems this was an old abandoned farm shed for the nearby area. They probably owned quite a number of acres. Do be careful though, whoever was here, mind it so that you wouldn't take their precious fusion core. Probably explains why this place is still working. Now, let's go find a more somber scene not too far away. One always has to remember that raiders were once humans too, albeit a product of circumstance. They are evil bandits these days. There are moments like this that you may never see in-game. This is a raider being buried by one of their comrades, and it seems this graveyard has been cobbled together recently. So it goes to show that despite everything, raiders still show a bit of their humanity. Also, this could just be an old gravesite, and instead of, the coffin's beneath this, and it's kind of like a makeshift grave. It could be the case. It's funny that you never really need a shovel in Fallout. You also, if you can sneak up on this raider, which is extremely difficult, you will hear them having a bit of dialogue between them and their fallen comrade, which is, again, something you just don't normally see. If you want to know where he is, he's just north of the Rocky Narrows Park. Now, I do believe I know what may have killed this particular raider, and it is up on the freeway here, a gunner encampment. Let's go check it out. Previously, we visited the Gunner's Den up on this freeway when we were exploring near Lexington. However, there is another on-ramp, and this one is on the southern side, still guarded by plenty of gunners, and they've even got a wee explosive box, so, you get a good bit of loot for a small assault. And once you proceed, you can of course go up to the main base again, accessible via either the north or the south. Taking pot shots is a speciality of the gunners, but they seem to have cobbled together a good wee system of generating electricity. For what purpose? Maybe just charging their turrets even. I would imagine that it has some purpose anyway. A wee bit of footlockers as well. But our main focus is actually carrying along the whole way to the end of this freeway. The only thing is, it cuts short. So we'll have to find an alternative route to get over to the other side. Good thing we have our trusty map here. But if you want to know that on-ramp, that is accessible via Rocky Narrows Park. So let's head right down to the bottom of the freeway. In keeping with the gunner theme, we're going to visit one of their strongholds further down the freeway. Thankfully, they have allowed me to show you around, and they're all going to be pretty friendly towards me. But once I leave, they'll quickly turn pretty hostile. Now, first things first, you want to loot the camp and obviously kill any of the gunners here. They seem to be taking quite a number of headshots, so if you see dead bodies around the freeway, you know exactly why. Now, the main prize in this area, just north of the Federal Ration Stockpile, is actually at the end of the freeway, where we can find a seeming bank robbery gone right, except they just didn't make it out of the city. So, let's head all the way to the end. With Nuka World fairly viewable in the distance, you can find the skeleton over here with a duffel bag full of pre-war money. Now, depending on your perks and levels, this could be a whole lot more. You still get a .44, which is pretty good, and some pre-war money leading up to an expert lock safe. If you aren't able to open expert lock safes, I recommend you wait until you are before making this journey, although the view is quite something. Now, we are going to visit another funny location, kind of like the bank robber here. And the best way to get to this man is actually to drop straight down. So, let's go visit the Tower Man. He is lying up here. How he ended up in one of these big towers, I'm not too sure. Did he try and use it as shelter? Because I don't really see a truck anywhere nearby. Maybe he was playing one of those games, you know, where you roll down the hill in a tower. I've seen that in the likes of grown-ups movies and all, which is pretty awesome. In the meantime, we'll just set a wee cone on him. No, that didn't work. Physics not really playing along. And, of course, many of you may remember the sleeping Yao Guai from a previous video. He's still sleeping away. I will... I'll give a wee boop on the snoop. Boop. And quickly retreat. Now, let's continue on down to this wee pond where we'll find a couple of mirelurks up to no good. Mirelurks thrive in damp, wet conditions, and this pond provided just that, as well as a lot of rads for them. You can find a group of dead ghouls next to the side here, although it could be max bar. It's a bit random as to what spawns exactly here, although this ghoul is simply not plain dead. If you try and pickpocket, it may have nothing, but trust me, they're alive. Okay, speaking of the mirelurks, it seems someone tried to set a camp up at the far side. On approach, the mirelurks will make their presence known. You can also take the wee cooking station. Maybe you want to sleep, but you'll want to clear the mirelurks before you do that. Now, the previous resident, though, you can pick clean. In fact, every part of them is still here for the taking. If you need bones, it's a good place to be. Okay, so... when the bombs were falling and civil strife was everywhere, the military seemed to have set up a bit of a minefield in what was previously their firing range. As well as a plane falling on top of them, these soldiers had their work cut out for them. On approach, you will encounter plenty of mines. Be sure to defuse all of them before reaching this little rusting APC. Inside, we can find a soldier with his trusty weapon and a silver locket, possibly with the photo of a loved one. There's also some mines that won't explode because you can loot them. As well as a dirty army helmet, you can also pick up a lot of pre-war money in this duffel bag. Perhaps he was finishing, this was his last deployment, and he was going home with quite a sizable amount of cash. Of course, that didn't end up happening. Now, the trench system here is vast as well as the minefield, so you'll have to navigate all of it to get around without dying. Now, there is quite an ingenious scavenger raider in the area, depending on which one you get when you arrive, who built their base out of the fuselage of the nearby plane wreck. In my case, it appears to be a raider this time. He's got a farm going on down here with plenty of wild corn, as well as a wee blossom of wild gourd. What you mightn't know, though, is he's actually got a bunker hidden right here. Now, once you enter, you can find he's not only got working electricity, but he's also got a ham radio, and for some reason, I don't get this. We rant. Why would you build a bunker and lock the chem cooler? Like, surely no one's going to find the bunker. It took me years to find it in-game, but he decided that he was that paranoid that he had to lock the chems. Raiders really amuse me. Alright, let's head on over to a canister launch shack up next. One of the strangest locations in Fallout 4 is the canister launch shack. Who built it? It's completely unknown. The engineering and ingenuity of this place is something to be marvelled. It seems like some sort of artillery system. You can load a canister into these little wooden slats, ignite them, and they will simply launch away. Now, brilliantly, there's no one about. We have no idea who owns this. Was it raiders? Was it gunners? Was it just a rather intelligent scientist? All these things are completely up in the air. What we do know, though, is that they were just brilliant. Can I activate a canister by punching it? I've always wondered that. The answer to that is no. However, a 10mm pistol, on the other hand, turns out the punching it did do something. It made it explode. Now, these, of course, don't do any damage to the potential enemy that lurks below. And one of the canisters has seemingly fallen down. Now, where he got all the canisters, it's anyone's guess as well. Presumably, though, he probably got it from the fort nearby, Fort Hagen. Now, I did talk about something lurking beneath down at that pond that there he is, right on cue. This is Deathclaw Pond. Now, when you arrive, he will be up to your level, and you're going to quickly realise that you probably shouldn't disturb him, and he won't be the first Deathclaw that we find on this run. You can see he's a hall here of gunners and a nest. Now, you can, of course, get an egg. Don't want to use the cracked one, though. We want an actual one. And, oh, hello. Now, whether or not you decide to leave him be, or destroy him, the gunner gives an interesting question. Perhaps it was an intelligent gunner that built the shack, although you would expect it would have been more than one, as it was cobbled after the bombs fell, using pieces of the plane that we found, of course, in the Hagen trenches. Speaking of Hagen trenches, did you notice there was a tank? A stolen one. Yeah, we'll have a look at that right away. The most powerful vehicle in the US arsenal, apart from, of course, power armor, which was eventually phasing out the main battle tank here. This one appears to have broken off its tracks and smashed straight into a rock. Now, why would I say it's stolen? Well, we can see a soldier at the back with a shovel and a bottle of booze. It seems they were trying to, unearth the tank that they had got stuck. And if we read the orders nearby, you stupid maggots, first your sergeant tells me you were caught drinking on base, then I find out a tank has gone missing. If that tank isn't here by 0600 tomorrow morning, spit shine, so help me, I will kick your, you could imagine what he says, Colonel Kemp. Now, Colonel Kemp, of course, we don't see in the game. Presumably he died shortly after the bombs fell, if he wasn't in a vault. Now, he actually was probably in the command centre, Fort Hagen, when you think about it. Anyways, these guys stole the tank at the most unbelievable time. The bombs were about to fall and they got drunk the night before. Maybe they knew something was going to happen. There is always the potential because the situation was that dire. You can pick up some purified water in an army helmet at the scene though. Admire it before we move on to our next one, which again is in Fort Hagen. Let's go. Located not a stone's throw away from the canister launch shack, you can find the foundations of what appears to be some sort of bunker. But the safe and the weapon is of your primary concern, but we can see from the ventilation system, it seems it was either the entrance to some form of bunker, it could have been a pillbox at some point overlooking a vast area of the fort that wasn't finished. Was it pre-war? More than likely, given the engineering around it. Would it have been an awesome place to set a settlement? Even better. I think that just the northern tip of this fort would have been awesome if you could have combined not only the canister launch shack, but with this, and if you could have upgraded that of some way, it would have just been an awesome place to hang out. Right now, we are going to head down the hill and find a few more things. And by few more things, it's that bridge right there, located very close to ArcJet Systems, which is just over there, if you can see it in the render distance. This bridge contains a stash that I can guarantee 99% of players have never ever seen, and well, now you're about to be one of the 1%. Let's go. This bridge is rife with random encounters. There's Mirelurks down below, and seemingly a settler just sitting about. Normally I find raiders, I'm not that lucky, but if you want a secret ArcJet stash, just slip down here. Most players would have reached this point and went, wow, there's a missile. That seems like an awfully strange placement. But not a lot of players looked up, and whoever built this needed a raise, because whilst the grenade dangling, you will need to disarm. Surprisingly, there's no way for you to actually trigger it. No trigger nearby, no tripwire, no nothing. But once we shoot the boards a few times, What drops below is a fantastic stash of caps, sometimes a sniper rifle, a machete, and some 10mm rounds. If you keep shooting, there's also some medical supplies. Sometimes it does fall into the water. I recommend saving before you attempt this. If you knew about this stash, let me know in the comments below. If you may have seen it in one of my shorts, one of my my best performing ones was actually about this particular location. Here it is right on the map. And yeah. Up next, we have a rather interesting landmark, so let's visit. Due west of ArcJet Systems, you can find this little propane fuel store, normally occupied by raiders, gunners, or anyone that was seeking some shelter in the area. Cooking station, as well as some sleeping quarters. It's also got a well-stocked vending machine and a well-stocked cash register. Do be sure, though, to nip around the side, where you can find not only some weapons, potted meat, and pre-war money, but a safe for you to unlock as well. See, it's amazing the things you find when you do a bit of digging. As I was saying previously, this may have actually supplied ArcJet Systems themselves, as it is so close to the vicinity, it would make sense. Or perhaps it provided just the local area, like the federal ration stockpile. Deal with the local residents before proceeding on to our next unmarked location. This is the first time that this location has featured in the series, completely neglected by both my exploration and the guidebook. It seems to be a toxic camp. Inside you can find a weapons workbench as well as a cooking station. It seems someone here had a pretty decent amount of supplies as well as a 3-piece suit. Now, one would wonder as to what they did in order to cause all the toxic sludge below. I would presume that the containers they built this camp on were in fact containing some seriously nasty stuff. And of course they obviously left the camp pretty quickly after that. Now, we are going to move on to a derailed train where there's some ghouls poking out of it. As the bombs were falling all around them, some people sought refuge inside of containers on the railway line. Unfortunately, it didn't work out too well for them, and well, as that mine shows, you don't even have to do too much work at this particular location. All you need to do is go in, take a few rads, and you'll pick yourself up a nice explosive crate. Take out the rest of the ghouls and you'll find that they actually had a wee bit of a home in here. Perhaps they were settlers or raiders. Eventually the ghoulification process gets them all due to the vicinity of quite a lot of radioactive barrels. Now, speaking of couples trying to survive, we're going to find a little camp where some were trying to do just that. And just whilst we are, we can see that levitation has been invented in the Commonwealth. You can find this couple just underneath the freeway. It seems that they were trying to survive in some sort of makeshift camp, and it went well to a certain degree. Whether they hid in it just as the bombs fell is perhaps a possibility, or they just pulled into the side of the road in complete panic as they were driving their car, and they made do with the supplies that they had, of course eventually just succumbing to radiation damage. If you want to know where we are, just north of Jalbert Brothers Disposal. Now, next we've got this ruined building where someone seems to be have set up a bit of a firing range for some bottles. And a firing range they've set up indeed. If we fly all the way up here, you can find a pretty common Nuka-Cola Quantum spawn point, as well as plenty of other bottles of many forms of alcohol. You can also find a very large roach that kind of caught me off guard there. Ooh, gives me the chills. And a tiny box of 5mm ammunition and a Usaka hat, as well as some welding goggles. If that's the kind of style you're going for, then you will be right at home in this little abandoned building. Now, let's move on to our next one. Overlooking the Corvega assembly plant, the bottle firing range, you can find a massive tree, but at the base of it there is a grave inscribed with the name dun 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 Thomas, as well as a Nuka-Cola truck and a mutated fern flower. Gives you the impression that this was a younger child. Presumably, we don't really know that, but it's still pretty creepy. You can make out Thomas just there, as well as the rest of the encryption, which I wish was made a little easier to read. That would have been an awesome feature in the game. Now, we are going to head further south. Our next destination is Graygarden, where there is a plethora of unmarked locations for us to discover. Let's go. I always admire these wee red rocket fast coolant recharges. Obviously, you didn't need to refuel your car as such because Fusion tended to last forever. That being said, you did need coolant, so these fast chargers are placed throughout the map. I must actually find out every single one of them. This one has a more peculiar vertibird hanging over the freeway near it though, so it's much more memorable. Now, there is a rumour there's some precious power armour that fell off this particular vertibird. Now, if we want to reach it, we'll have to find a way up. And lucky for us, I can spot a lift just north of Coastal or College Square. I also just noticed that it seems to have dropped not only a soldier, but a load of its supplies and crates. And ammo. Wow. Thank you, oh great vertibird of the sky. Now, let's go get that power armor, shall we? Upon reaching the lift, press the button and send ourselves up to the top of the freeway. I love how convenient these little lifts are. Of course, most of them are pre-war, mostly for maintenance. Easy access to the top of these freeways. Now, as for the power armor, you can actually just see it already emerging. It seems that whoever was piloting it might have actually survived the impact. As for the rest of the crew of the vertibird, unfortunately for them, they did not, and one of them, as you could tell earlier, had a nasty fall down. If we go into the vertibird though, we can find more ammo, and is there any helmet sitting? Yes, we can even find ourselves a helmet. Not a bad find. Now, whatever you do, just watch your step. Whoa! Once you're recovered from that slight fall, you'll want to visit this little Powalski shelter congregation, to say the least. We can open them all up. None of them seem to have anything of particular value. Well, I found this guy, I suppose. May as well open up the rest of them and see if anything else is happening. No. Now, all these skeletons surrounding a fancy porta-diner. It's a strange setup, to say the least. As for the bus, you could presume that they were maybe all on vacation. They just pulled up for a wee stop. And in terms of stops, I can't imagine anything more exciting than one to hopefully survive a nuclear blast. They were very quick at getting out of the bus, though. I can definitely give them bonus points for that. We are just southeast of Graygarden. Now, moving on, we can find, an explosive box and dead soldiers. Wow, I never knew this existed. That's a first for me. There's a lot of firsts in this series. Now, what I do want to focus on is this Graygarden pump. It provides water, of course, to the robots that are all currently maintaining the farm of Graygarden. And if you ever wondered where the water came from, it's good that they had something, because if you follow this the whole way, it would have been cool if there was a pipe leading to it to get that stash, especially that explosive stash. I've never noticed that, nor noted it in any of my videos. That's awesome. I would have remembered that. There's a wee camp just west of here, so let's have a wee look. Usually when you stumble across this campsite, there is no one about. Occasionally there are raiders and just certain people that pass on by. Once you loot all of the supplies, we can move on to our next one. It seems whoever did set this up probably thought it was a good idea to be close to the railway line in order to gain access to the likes of Beantown. That gives me the impression it could definitely be raiders. Now, this bus that's coming up is another example of a group of people that, let's just say, I'm not going to say they weren't as lucky as the ones that got the shelters up there, because if you know anything about those preservation shelters, no one was particularly lucky when they got to one. But with all the suitcases, this bus was probably on its way vacationing. You know, people just... They were off, they were going on holiday, and unfortunately for them, they didn't get all that far before the bombs fell, and would have just completely wiped them out, given how close they are to the glowing sea. Now, this truck and trailer contains one of my favourite finds. I definitely thought it was like a Minuteman find. Now, it's an advanced locked door, so open it, and we can get ourselves a stash. See, that's why I thought it was a Minuteman stash. Now, once you get up... Pro tip, don't run this game at 120 FPS if you want to be able to jump. Now, given the Minuteman insignia and the dead soldier here, we can probably find a wee stash. Oh, 4 fragmentation grenades and some ammo, as well as seemingly a bit of a campsite. Someone was holed up here Perhaps it was this soldier wearing some dirty army fatigues, and it would have been cool if he had like some Minuteman uniform on, like Preston Garvey's. That would have been awesome if it was like one of his officers that you knew, that he would say, oh, you know, an officer went missing near Beantown or near Weston. That would have been awesome. Right, let's head on to the next one. Occasionally in the Commonwealth you come across scenes like this. A lone roaming protectron alongside a settler wearing a postman uniform. Sometimes he's surrounded by ghouls, sometimes he's just on his own. In this case, the wandering protectron will just have to continue. Protect and serve, good sir. Continue on. Now, beneath this wreck of the freeway, you can find a Skytram, well, carriage, compartment? Not sure what you would say over in the US, but yes. Inside, you can get explosives and a soldier who was being transported around. He may have been going back to Fort Hagen when news of the bombs falling hit. And obviously what hit him first was the bombs themselves. Now, this is a bit of a Mirelurk nest, although occasionally you find no Mirelurks here, which is quite strange. I did think a Mirelurk Queen would explode nearby, but thankfully not. If you want to know where we are, just north of the Weston Water Treatment Plant. Now, our next destination will actually be taking us way over to Watts Consumer Electronics. Catch us over there. Once you reach Watts, you'll want to start heading west. For you see, they set up a military checkpoint here to check all trucks going in and out of the nearby area of the city. And you can see that they had quite a queue lining up as soon as the bombs fell. Now, the trailers and APCs may contain some items for you. The trailer, of course, is an advanced lock. Open it up. And sometimes there is a steamer trunk. Usually when the game ends and you pick a side and they hold up at these checkpoints, they'll start spawning steamer trunks. So I got caught out once again. The APC though has some Molotov cocktails. Time to start a riot. In terms of power armor though, if you are able to hack this advanced lock terminal, you can gain access to whatever armor is inside. Again, just for reference on the map, it's near Mass Gravel and Sand and Watts Consumer Electronics. Speaking of Mass Gravel and Sand, there's a little place I want to show you right there. When you are in Mass Gravel and Sands, be sure to climb this little concrete conveyor belt where you can find a duffel bag at the top. Normally, I find a stealth boy inside it, so, you know, it's a high recommendation for me. I know it's marked on the map as an actual location, but the duffel bag itself, I have passed numerous occasions and I've forgotten all about it, so just to give you a wee bit of a reminder. Absolutely crawling with ghouls and seemingly raiders is this little pharmacy. Now, once you enter, you can actually find that it still has a few items about. Excuse me, good ghoul, I would need buy. Thank you. Cigarettes, Medex, and a first aid kit can be found inside. And it seems the cash register, though, has been fully looted. Heading upstairs, it's completely devoid of stuff except a wee duffel bag that's hanging about in the corner. Normally you find raiders and ghouls engaged here, but just for the purpose of the video, they've decided to sign a bit of a peace treaty. They're being good. Turns out one of the ghouls recognised the raider. They're all buddies now. It's great to see. There is a rusting tricycle at the back, not a brand new one. We have searched high and low for one, and we do know that there's one in one of the vaults. However, you can't lift it out, so unfortunately as a decoration for settlements, tricycles are a clean tricycle is off the menu. Jangles, however, you can pick him up if you're missing him. I wonder how many there are in the game. That's something I should look into. Right, let's head on into Lexington to find a few other unmarked locations. In the shadow of the Hulkin Freeway, we can find a bus station returning us to the southern portion of Lexington. It seems someone was standing here waiting for the bus that never arrived. One just left the station as well. So either they got off or they were just getting on and the bombs fell. It would have been quite a frightening sight. They took refuge inside of the shelter, hoping that would make a difference. We can, of course, check the restrooms to see if they left any loot about, and occasionally in Fallout 4 you find stuff in the toilet bowl. If we go into the back room, seems to be a bit of an officer, whoever was in charge of this station, although there doesn't seem to be anything going on except a lonely telephone. Wonder what was happening on the bus. Let's go on. Who got on? Who got off? Well, it appears this bus might have been out of service, as there doesn't appear to be any seats, which is a strange thing that you encounter in the Commonwealth. Some buses have seats and it looks pretty normal, and some don't. Whether the seats were stripped for parts for raider bases, raider armour, raiders, or gunners, I suppose both are as culpable as the other. There's also a little radioactive pond here. I would say dumping would have been quite prevalent, especially around major cities like Lexington, so it comes as no surprise as you would find something like this underneath a freeway. Although, given the collection of rusting cars, it seems that they also would have just dumped them there. Given the fact that they all contain fusion cores, I'd say extracting the fuel and disposing of them environmentally friendly was not an option, especially given the economic circumstances at the time. This Lexington bus station is just south of the apartments and close to mass gravel and sand. Now we'll be heading a wee bit closer to College Square, where we can find some things hidden up in the rooftops. Now we know College Square is the start of the massive city sprawl that is Boston. However, just behind all these newly built buildings, you can find a little forgotten home. My theory on this one, as it's marked on the map, is that they didn't want to sell to the big developers, and so the buildings were carefully placed all around. Now, given plenty of time and the fact that it probably would have been more run down than the surrounding buildings, when the bombs fell, this home didn't stand a chance. And as such, you can't even use the mattress. That's how forgotten this little area was. Now, once you raid the Nuka fridge, if there is any, you'll want to start climbing up the scaffolding, because once you enter into this room, now it is getting into College Square, you can fight your way through this building. But if you jump on to the boxes and jump onto the filing cabinet and somehow have enough jet to make a spectacular jump, you can get up to the roof. Now, why on earth would you want to do that? Well, there is a grenade box hidden up here that, well, it's so hidden that I've apparently... there it is. Real time, I was starting to doubt myself, and I'm like, I know this crate's here, I've just seen it. So yes, some explosives hidden on the rooftop, which is pretty handy before you start entering and clearing out all of the ghouls. As I said, you do need a bit more of a boost once you get up here, so do keep that in mind. A jetpack is probably one of the few ways, or jet, and a bit of a dream. The door at the back is also advanced lock, so bear that in mind. Now, let's go a wee bit further west to College Square and see what we can find. Located just in front of the ArcJet systems is one of their marvellous creations. This is a Stingray, a massive hulking piece of, well, unfortunately, you can't read the plaque, but I can give you a wee bit of lore behind them. They were experimental aircraft, fighter jets, and capable of space flight if you see the mural in the Museum of Freedom. If I throw on TLC, we could actually fly up and have a look here. Let's have we nosy of the Stingray. It seems to be completely covered in moss, but it was a fine piece of engineering. You can find several across the Commonwealth. One crashed off the coast, in fact one near North Hagen Beach, and another one near a suit of power armour close to the Poseidon energy plant. Not the main one at the bottom right corner, more so the turbine closer to West Everett Estates. Yeah, they are quite a curious thing. I did a complete video covering all of the locations. You can even find one hanging in the Vim factory over in Far Harbour. So an interesting piece of equipment, and plus you can get yourself some supplies. Now, someone had a nasty camping trip, but in order to get to him, we'll have to cross that railway bridge we seen earlier at one of the campsites past Beantown. Let's go find this guy and see why his camping trip was so bad. More commonly, this area would have been known for the presence of a certain outworldly alien invader. This case, I want to show you someone that got overlooked. Someone who was reading a book and a tree collapsed on top of them. Now, what's scary about this particular scene is it could have been before the bombs fell, or it could have been more recent. Maybe the tree uprooted, and when it fell on top of him, he dropped his lantern. Lanterns contain oil, and given the presence of the oil can, it's given the impression that whilst he may have been crushed and underneath the tree, the lantern would have ignited the surrounding area. And, well, either that or his campfire, take your pick. He basically burned alive if the tree didn't instantly kill him, and he probably didn't die straight away. What a terrible way to go. The burnt book, the environmental storytelling of this particular location is probably among my favourite in the entire game. It just doesn't get much better than that. South of Beantown Brewery and east of Uberland Station, a lot of players will never come across this or make the connection of the burnt book, lantern, oil can, campfire. They did everything to show you. Unfortunately, you can't sleep in the mattresses. Funny as that would sound, it's not an option. The cave, however, some of you may recall. Now, currently, I am only hovering around level 2, so I will come back here at about level, I think it's after level 21. Don't quote me on that, but you have to be quite a high level for the alien to show up. So, let's wait and see. And at level 20, you will hear a ship flying through the atmosphere and crashing rather loudly. When you arrive on site, you'll find the craft right here. It's located east of Uberland Station. And when you jump down, you'll notice some green blood, which is quite curious. Shows that something survived the crash and appears to have wandered off. And if we follow the green trail, and past, of course, our burned friend up there, we can enter the cave and give our visitor a bit of a welcome. I didn't pull out my marksman sniper rifle for no reason. We're just being cautious. Now, he mightn't be too friendly towards you, but I have come to the conclusion that my alien friend here is more than just a bit of target practice. Of course, this guy with the ham radio, he must have thought was one of his friends. Maybe he contacted him. Maybe this skeleton is one of those crazy conspiracy theorists on the aliens, although it's not so crazy now given 2023, and I'm sure by 2024 things have only gotten crazier. Now, I am going to say that you could kill the alien. You could one-shot him to the head, and you could pick up his alien blaster, but would you really want to do that? Probably not. Me, on the other hand, I missed. The first time. The second time, I've missed quite a few times, except that time. 4 times the charm, he didn't stand a chance. You get 309 rounds of the alien blaster, and the pistol itself, really good value, really good damage. It's not as OP as the one in New Vegas, but it's still pretty awesome. Or the one in Fallout 3, I forgot how mad that is. Look at those wee eyeballs and bits and pieces of them. Brilliant. Okay, it concludes the cave as well. There's not much else you can find. I didn't even want the blaster. I just wanted to make sure that he knew that God created man in his image and not that aliens. I always love those memes. Anyways, let's move on to the next bit. Dun-dun, 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 dun-dun. We have a bit of a shark problem, and if we drain away the water, you can see what is going on. The shark's on the boat, actually. But our bigger concern is this fellow down in the cage. Armed with a combat knife and some barnacles, he was obviously forgotten about. Probably doing a bit of, cage diving, something to that degree. And when the bombs fell, unfortunately, he was left there. Now, let's get onto this boat. Once on board, you can pick yourself up a blue bandana as well as a machete. Obviously, it's a bit of a nod to the Jaws series, with the shark on the boat and the shark cage and the guy completely abandoned there. But there's a wee ham radio, although it's not turned on at the moment, so it's not like you're approaching this area because there's like some sort of signal. But if you want to know where we are, just beside Cambridge Polymer Labs, but it's considered closer to Fort Hagen for some brilliant reason. Or Hagen. I love swapping between the two. It annoys everyone equally, and that is the best policy. Now, as for this it's a little den of some sorts. A woman was chilling. She had a straw pillow. It seemed that it was pretty comfy. Obviously made out of bits and pieces of metal that she's cobbled together. So obviously post-war. And what killed her? Well, it could be radiation. It could be the death of her Brahmin that she loved so dearly. I mean, heartbreak is a real thing when it comes to animals. But out the back, she had a bit of a garden. Heck, she even had a washing line. Washing line, yeah. Take a minute for that to settle on how I pronounce that. Welcome to Northern Ireland. Although, even by that standard, I would say it's still pretty crazy to a lot of people on how I say washing. Hopefully that's a lot of enjoyment in the continuation of this series. Alright, so we've got another site coming up. Oh, again, we are just south of the Polymer Labs. Haven't went that far. Always love to check the map in case anyone is wondering. But I'm getting very close to somewhere I can go on a complete rant about documents. Hidden documents. What the government was doing over here. This is the documents dump. Now, there are papers everywhere, as well as a few skeletons. Now, my theory for this is that, given the situation, a lot of documents needed removal, shall we say. And so the government sent a few boys to just, a few of the boys to dump them all in a nearby pond. It might seem far-fetched, except the fact that there is a pickup nearby that has a load of documents in it. Except, I don't know where that pickup's gone to. In fact, I'm starting to think that the pickup is normally where the alien spacecraft has crashed into. So that goes to show, sometimes when you alter, things in game, such as letting the ship crash, that happens. Still, pretty neat that it removed one of the unmarked locations because it crashed. Awesome. Right, there's a little store that I want to visit next, and it's located right here. Contains a lot of fertilizer, as well as, I think it's got a wee locked back room. I may have already unlocked it, but yes, this particular place seems to be completely abandoned, and you don't find anyone about, which is a shame. I would have loved a trader here, unless my trader glitched, and there normally is one. Anyways, let's open this door and have we look. So, with all these bags of fertilizer, it seems this place was actually just a front to build some, to manufacture some day tripper, which, again, pretty neat. Although you do get a nice rifle and plenty of bags of fertilizer and lots of pre-war money. Yep, definitely a drug operation. And I wonder what happened. If there is a merchant there, well, you're in luck, because I've been here a few times and there seemingly isn't. But if you do want a merchant, there is one quite close. Let's have a wee visit to them. Before we cross the bridge over towards Forest Grove March, we first will come across a chem dealer. Normally, in my case, I think they died quite a while ago, but they're normally found inside this tunnel. So if you do encounter them, say hi for me, and apologise that I accidentally got them killed in their last game. But they deal in chems. They've quite a few bodyguards, so you'll be in safe hands. This wee way station connected to the tunnel is just across the way, but it hides an extremely sinister thing inside. I think this is the one. Yes, it is. Now, don't ask how there's no downstairs, no door in, but there is a bunker. All will be revealed. It seems to be that they had some sort of Halloween decorations up. Although, it quickly takes a turn when you see a combat knife, a sledgehammer, a machete, a hammer, and a box of chems and a makeshift battery, alongside what appears to be some sort of torture chamber. Blood packs and bits and pieces of skull show that this way station is definitely hiding more than it would seem, and there's nothing in the pumpkin either. So yes, trick or treat. Whoever came here, it was definitely a trick. In fact, no, it was just pure torture. Right, let's exit back out and see what we can find. On a little side note, you will get ambushed by a few feral ghouls. Don't be fooled by the fact it says friendly. This one is not friendly. Oh, I got the kill. And it didn't do anything. Oh, that's because the no clip's on. So yeah, we're very close to the relay tower, and from this point we're going to explore a few more places around Vault 81 before jumping across back to Forest Grove Marsh and visiting a few places closer to the fort. This particular pickup pond was a real hit. It was one of my best performing videos for no particularly good reason, but you can find a lot of bloodleaf in the area and pretty cool animations of leaves blowing in the wind. Now, there is more when you go closer towards the vault. For you see, this is in the path of a Yaogwai who patrols the area. I nicknamed him Yogi. He's normally quite a high level, so when you're in the area, do bear him in mind. Get it? Bear him in mind. He's a good boy. Boop. Yep, love the boop, the snoop of any bird we come across. Yeah. So, Now that we've visited Yogi, we've had a wee look at that, we've only got one more place before we cross the river and see what we can find at the other side of the Charleston Dam. And I think I've just found it. It's this little scene. It seems to be some sort of off-the-path car park. Now, where all the brain fungus come from, I'm not too sure. But you can find someone laying in the back and another person over here. Maybe they were both a couple. They were lying stargazing before turning into something resembling more creatures from The Last of Us. Yeah, I don't know how all the debris and everything. I suppose they were probably in the absolute worst place when the bombs fell, because from the glowing sea they would have had zero cover sitting here. And yeah, it's a bit of a mess south of Vault 81. Okay, let's head on to our next destination. Now, this is a raider camp I could get behind. It's well defensible, it's high up, and it's far away from a lot of danger. Now, given all that, you will of course have to fight them in order to clear the area. That's probably the least of your worries, probably the most of theirs. But they do have a really cool point where they're sitting overlooking the area. Move, Institute Spybirds. Yeah, this little spot here. A raider is sitting beside an old skelly friend, a bit of whiskey, and their trusty dog. I must say, he looks so badass just sitting out here. Someone apparently is trying to break into one of the containers. It's amazing you don't see more of that. It makes so much sense that you would want into these. They've been sealed for God knows how long, and that alone makes them a worthy find. Now, when you're up here, if you just want to drop down and hopefully not break your legs, we can proceed on down to where you normally find a lot of blood bugs. Yes, they occupy the riverside here, and they're in charge. So when you're in this area, you'll probably have to fight them. I said probably. You will have to fight them. Now, if we remove the water, we always love to have a wee look to see if anything's across the seabed as we cross over. Get it? There is a wee sunken bus, not much on it though. I've had a wee check, and the bridge over to Forest Grove Marsh. Once we and a shopping trolley. Not much different from the UK then. Wee shopping trolley lying in the river. Things that just transcend everything you can just find in other countries, you know? Gotta love finding a shopping trolley. Right, now I was just exploring underneath this bridge because normally you never know what you might find. Fun fact, these motorcycles are called Lone Wanderers. Whether that's a hint to you know what, it's probably a high possibility. Okay, so we've got a little Powalski shelter coming up just above us. There it is in all its glory. It seems a few people were fighting to get inside, and sometimes have a few items sitting amongst themselves, so be sure to pick up everything. The Unstoppables comics, of course, sitting behind, where you can find Grognag and Manta Man and the Silver Shroud, and the other two that I always forget the names of. I never quite remember. Okay, now that we've crossed back over, we have a few places left to check out. One further south, and then we're going to bounce back to the Charleston Dam, where we're going to see that there's a secret room you may have not known of. First things first, though, there's a bit of roadkill. Now, this Brahmin contains quite a large number of items, and is very highly reflective as if it's covered in oil. All these things are rather confusing, but I think I know what killed it. If we just have a wee look over here. Yeah, there is a Yaogwai. I had to use the VATS, I didn't quite see him. It seems he's sleeping at the moment. Would you like booped in the snoop? Boop. I love how nice I am to the bears, but I was not nice to that alien earlier. Although, he definitely deserved it. Did you see the way he looked at me? He was injured. I was going to offer a helping hand and missed him 3 times with a rifle before hitting him on the 4th shot. These things happen. So, the dam itself is located way up at the end there. It's closer to the relay tower. So, let's go have a look at the dam. Marked things in the map aren't really of my concern, but this particular dam, which is technically regarded as part of Forest Grove Marsh, does contain quite a few things. This is normally a rather random camp. In my playthroughs, I've had Yaogwai spawn here, I've had a merchant spawn here, I've had raiders spawn here, I've had gunners spawn here. It is random. Let me know what you find in the comments below. Moving on over though, we can find the operations room. Strange that that's the only word for it. Let's have a look. Inside, of course, is plenty of nothing. Absolutely nothing going on. And you might think this is completely pointless, and you're almost right until there's a wee bunker hidden at the back down to the reactor level. It is here where you can find the source of a ham radio distress signal. No? Was I talking about the wrong spot? I might have been. Anyway, there's a tool chest and plenty of things hidden around here. Obviously, it was a hydroelectric dam. Makes it strange there's reactors, but I suppose the water was cooling them? That might be the excuse for it anyway. Oh no, the ham radio's in here. I did not lie to you, as I would never lie to my audience. Yes, and other items. Again, most players probably have never been in the operations room, let alone found the reactor. So, yeah, pretty awesome we find here. The bridge, of course, just being here in Forest Grove. So let's go a wee bit into Forest Grove and see what we can find in the town itself. When crossing over the massive locks on this dam, we can see that there is a boat just seemingly sitting down at the bottom. Although there is no items on board, it does slowly drift from side to side, which, to be fair, is quite cool. Would have been awesome if you could have filled the locks up with water, some quest line. It would have been neat. But if we jump down here, we can see the final view of yet another romantic couple. I mean, given the era, it's pretty cool. The woman in the dress, the man in his work shoes. They were looking out at the lovely bay. And, well, there is, of course, another stranded boat. You can go over and visit. There's nothing really in the way of items. And if we drain the water away, we get a curious view where it appears that they flooded this area in order to place a house. When construction's of massive dam projects, they sometimes have to flood the place, and there could have been at some point a house down in this little valley before they redirected the river. There's quite a lot of instances where that is the case. Now, venturing into Forest Grove Marsh itself, there are plenty of things to find. Now, whilst this is marked as just one primary location, there are several that I always love to kind of show off. Now, navigating the rooftops is the safest way about, as the water is quite radioactive and the residents are not particularly friendly, especially the ghoul ones. They are not friendly in the slightest. Jumping up to the roof of the gun store, working your way down, steamer trunk on board, and then once we drop down to the next level, we can find ourselves a ghoul in full plated armor. Reaver, he's away, and they must have made all the weapons up here. Bit of a wee office, and my favourite shelf in the game, 50 caliber 44, 38, 5.56 and 10mm rounds to be found on the bottom of this gun store. It's quite a neat wee display case. I love how someone has just left it there, but it would make sense. This place is completely covered in ghouls, so no one would want to visit. Now, we have, coming up next, another little bar. Well, when I say bar, it's more of a pub, a buffet place, somewhere to play a bit of music, get a bit of food, and especially get some drink. Now, the door here is booby-trapped with a tension trigger. Setting it off will, of course, lead to some devastating results for you, but you can raid all of the equipment inside, most of which is medical. Surprisingly, the potatoes and gourds here haven't spoiled yet, which is quite curious. If you'd found rotten food, you would have thought that would make more sense. Upstairs, the owner of the establishment, assumingly, is sitting watching TV with his wee teddy bear friend before all went to hell. And with all the tall flasks, he was probably an expert cocktail maker. Again, environmental storytelling, very important, and Fallout 4 nails it in an awful lot of places, so brilliant to see. Right, now we're going to go poke a sleeping giant. Yes, this is not the place you would want to get caught out. In fact, just jumping down from the ledge above, I'm sure plenty of players have encountered this rather nasty deathclaw. Some reason he's injured. I may have hit him with an explosive round of a rifle not that long ago, so that might explain why he is so, well, you can always boop him. Boop. The size of them claws. Could you imagine one of them things in real life? I am going to state, I think the Fallout 3 and the Fallout New Vegas Deathclaws look better. That's just my opinion. Say what you want in the comments. I just think that they are better. Now, of course, you want to know where he is so you can avoid him. Southeast of Greater Maspelug Clinic and Fort Hagen. Now we're going to go find ourselves a checkpoint with some military power armor, because we haven't seen one of them in a while. Despite the fort being surrounded by checkpoints, it seems that they ended up putting yet another checkpoint, because, you know, the US military at this time, they just love checkpoints. Now, that is a rather nasty looking piece of work there, but he's not going to bother me. He is giving me the creeps just by being in the vicinity, but that's what blood bugs do. You can find a power armor suit sitting right here next to a ruined APC, closer to Mass Pike Interchange and the Poseidon Reservoir. Now, let's have a wee nosy about here. If you want more power armor, which I know you all love power armor, I'm going to show you there's in fact a power armor shed. By the way, there may be a steamer truck. No, it's just all coffee machines. Probably, I'd imagine all the soldiers enjoyed smoking quite a bit. See, when you play at 120 FPS, I'm going to say it again, I keep getting stuck in things. But anything behind the... No, just cigarette machines. Lots and lots of cigarette machines and cartons everywhere. Probably destined for some massive distributor, or maybe the fort itself, and this was just one of the main roads in. All these things, possibilities. Now, the power armor warehouse itself is actually located just south of the Greater Mass Blood Clinic. Let's just teleport over. And just like that, we appear in front of these marvellous power armor warehouses. You can see from all the frames that this is where the military would have kept quite a number of them. Surprisingly, in a bit of an undefended part of the fort, you know, there's only one fence between, you know, there's just a fence and a checkpoint between some of the most prized military grade equipment in this universe of Fallout. It's amazing the way that works. Anyway, there are 3 sets of sheds scattered about here, each of them containing just various items and APCs. It would have also probably doubled up as a bit of a motor pool for repairing anything to do with APCs and power armor as well. Now, where would the tanks have went to? Well, they in fact would have ended up more so at the tank depot. So let's visit it further into Fort Hagen. I suppose I should say on the map, as I said, just south of the Greater Mass Blood Clinic. Now, this is a wee bit deeper into the fort. Nestled away within this maze of a fort, you can find a tank undergoing some maintenance and diagnostics. They were probably checking the pressures of the coolant system and the fusion as well. You can use this place as a bit of a camp to sleep and rest. Was this an area where the stolen tank came from? Well, it's very close to the relay tower and the tank itself. We do know there's plenty in the Fort Hagen hangar as well, near the satellite array, once you get the DLC where you can gain access to that. So the other part of this place, I want to show you the Red Rocket and then the abandoned shopping mall, which is quite an interesting wee place to look at. The Red Rocket station to begin with, like all, it has a power armor station, but it's pretty devoid of anything inside. Now, I think the reason for that is perhaps this was a relatively new Red Rocket. Maybe it took them an awful while in order to gain access into the fort itself. That could be a possibility as to why it has only just appeared. So whilst we bear that in mind, we'll go check out this little recreational bar area. Again, part of the fort. You can find plenty of the balls for a billiards table or a pool table if you need them. They're all here. This soldier seems to have fallen through the roof, which is curious. He has fallen through the roof and it looks like he's playing pool. That's the key part there, which again, brilliant to see. I love the environmental layout of this place. And if you want more stuff, head on upstairs and we can find a soldier lying next to a Jangles the Moon Monkey, overdue book, and of course the wee teddy bear. And if you look really closely, you can see one of them Halloween decorations, you know, the wee Easter egg guys. Yeah, another wee neat find. Of course, none of the mattresses you seem to be able to sleep on. That's a bit curious. But I imagine one of the guys was just standing over here and boom, the floor fell apart. He fell onto the billiards table. What a rough way to go. Now, this fort was not only occupied by personnel of the US military, it was also occupied by Vault-Tec. We can comb through these administrative offices. You can find plenty of food and items just laying around, but more importantly, all of these employees were employed by Vault-Tec. They occupied the northern side of the fort. I mean, if you're going to carry out the types of experiments and work as closely with the US military as they were, it would make sense that you would make sure that your operations would be set up in the fort itself. If we move over, this is the barracks for a lot of those employees. And then it starts to tune in that it is Vault-Tec. Going over to the lab, you can find plenty of bones, and I probably were conducting some horrific experimentation, because you know what Vault-Tec are like. Wouldn't be Vault-Tec if they weren't up to absolutely no good. And, well, that is definitely a testament to them. Over here, you can see two drinking. This guy doesn't seem to be Vault-Tec. He's not wearing the lab coat. I imagine his friend was simply explaining to him all the horrible things that each vault was going to do, and he was spilling all the secrets because it was the end of the world. And, yeah, he probably would have been fired for it, but let's face it, at that point, I don't think he minded that much because, you know, they were all bathed in nuclear fire. Now, let's move on to the abandoned shopping mall, the other side of the fort. Talk about potential. This shopping mall is completely boarded up and abandoned. And do you know what? It's a rather large building. It would have been really cool to go inside and to see, like imagine it was like a master lock door and you got in and it was just like pre-war shopping, you know, like a bit of a glimpse into what life may have looked like, especially considering the fact this is a military compound and the likelihood of this place not being picked clean, although it would be quite small. I mean, you see the gun case at Forest Grove Marsh, it was unpicked, so, you know, things like that can occur. This, of course, is located within the fort itself, and is a real shame. I have never came across mods or anything that utilizes this building. Obviously, you would need to create your own interior cell and work it out yourself. But it's such a large and completely useless building, but I still love it. I think things like that need to be appreciated. Now, passing the Greater Mass Blood Clinic, we're going to check out two of the checkpoints around the fort. Fort Hagen has two checkpoint stations. One is located at the south. You can see the clock stopped at the exact time the bombs fell, even though it's one of the much larger ones. And it seems someone would have sat here and basically played a real-life version of Papers, Please. Plenty of items can be found. And, of course, a big... is that either a moose or a caribou? Or I got corrected on exactly what it is, but I'm going to go between the two of those. Now, let's head on over to the east one, because this one, obviously being south, you can imagine the other one will be to the east. On our way, we will be passing by, seems a bit of a playground. Remember, military families would have lived here. Their children needed to do something, so it would have made sense that the fort would have had a pretty well-contained park. Although all the beer bottles gives me the impression that some of the soldiers may have used this for their own recreations, especially given the circumstances. Now, we can see the east checkpoint just showing up in the distance here. Afterwards, we're going to blow up an arc jet engine that is sitting down, experimental one, mind you, so yeah, it's definitely gonna explode. Glad they didn't copy and paste this from the other one. We can find, of course, a camera, potato crisps, and a battered clipboard, alongside some vodka. Basically everything you need to hold down a checkpoint, and some chalk. Curiously, I can't remember the last time I found a piece of chalk in this game. There's two. Curious. Not something you see all the time. Alright, so we are leaving the fort. It's funny, the fort even had advertisements. Wonder was that hot real estate. Right, let's go find this arc jet engine, which actually should just be over the clip of this hill. Is that it over there? Do my eyes deceive me? It is the arc jet engine. Now, rumour has it this was being transported from arc jet systems. How it ended up here, I'm not too sure. Maybe the driver knew it was, you know, valuable and went off-road, or considering that it's all hooked up, the military were testing it here themselves. Now, to use the terminal, it's pretty simple. Begin fire test and cover your ears. It may get a wee bit loud here. And we can just watch in awe as this massive booster fires up. What was it being attached to? Well, similar engines are attached to the USS Constitution. It may have been something for outer space travel. Of course, what we did was we just completely ruined the project and blew it to smithereens. It then blows up the truck. Now, be careful. A lot of people go towards it thinking there's maybe loot. The truck explodes. You have a bad time all around. Now, we are moving on to our next destination, which is a trader who has a pretty unique camp setup just south of the Western Water Treatment. Having cobbled together this little base of operations, I suppose, you can get quite a lot of scrap off this scrap merchant. Now, he is just labelled as a trader. Sometimes it's a female, usually it is a female for me. They've got a bottle of wine, cat bowl, surprisingly no cats sitting about. They also still drinking wine. I love how they mix drinks. Sometimes a bit of wine, bit of bourbon. I know people tend to mix drinks. Oh, overdue book. Should have left that back, sir. He's got a wee cooking station outside as well. You will want to know where this is, because if you do need scrap, it's a very useful location to know of. So it's east of the fort and then very close to Forest Grove Marsh. What will we have in store next? Now, the Fort Hagen array is completely swarmed with Rust Devils, and if you want to gain access to the hangar, which is an amazing location to explore, we will have to do a bit of a quest line in order to unlock this door in order to get to the hangar itself. But there is a second hidden bunker in this area that you can access right away. It's located over here, aptly named Military Bunker. Inside, it's one of the distress signals. You can, of course, come in, turn off the ham radio, get yourself some dog tags. Whoever was sending out the signals clearly didn't stay here very long, as they left the ham radio on. Their dog tags, and they must have went back out. Because if you find a skeleton, you know they didn't leave. But if you don't find a skeleton, they probably tried to go back out into the Commonwealth and face the world above, which I can tell you, horrible choice. Though I honestly couldn't tell you with certainty whether I would stay in a vault or leave. If it was a cushy vault, I would leave, or wouldn't leave. But would you know it's a cushy vault? Because some of the experiments are freaky. Now, let's gain access into the hangar here. So we're going to pretend you're doing the quest line and you got in. Once inside, we have a vast military complex for us to explore. You won't be able to get in unless you do the head hunting quest line, which would give you access to the terminal above in order to get into this bunker. But what you do, you will find plenty of traps, Rust Devils, and bosses to fight. The dungeon ends at this side, and it laps over itself a few times from above, which is pretty awesome. You sort of get used to the way these levels are designed. First up, you'll have to fight some Mr. Handies that, well, in my case, are Mr. Handy Destroyers. I did see a Dominator. There's a Dominator. That's a pretty beefy boy. Now, get through all this, and what wonderful makeup you have there. Brilliant. Gotta love the Rust Devils. Okay, so this is the tank hangar where you can find the largest collection of tanks in the game. There's only 3 in the base game outside of this hangar, and there's 4 in here, so there's more than the entire base game, which I must say I absolutely love them. They remind me of either an Apocalypse tank from Red Alert 2 or the Mammoth tank, or even the Overlord tank from Command & Conquer Generals. Yeah, so quite a unique design. Now, in terms of this location, there's plenty of power armor frames and lots of killing to be done. The Rust Devils aren't exactly ones to negotiate, so you will have to start fighting through every single one of them. Now, first up, you'll want to enter the medical bay and get yourself any supplies that you can find laying around. There are plenty and lots of corners about here, as well as a 7-ball, so if you need that for your billiards table, it's one of the rare ones to find. As for the center part here, you can find usually a power armor suit, in my case X01, pretty handy, though it's an expert lock gate, but you can enter from the other side. I think it's also expert lock, so one way or another, you're going to have to start opening some doors. Now, this place does go in one big giant loop, and as for this place here, if you were to unlock it, it would gain you access into, I think it's kind of like a, what is it, just a wee catwalk up here. Any notes that I can read? No, just an explosive box. Oh, it gives you a bit of an overview of this part. Now, it is a bit odd because once you do open it, you'll have to kind of jump across here because the floor has given way. Now, if we return back down to the base level here, don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, we're going to have to delve through via some security gates here. Well, going up the stairs to the side of it. Let's fight our way through here, although we have a bit of a truce with them at the moment, and gotta love the way some of these skeletons are placed. I must say, it brings me an awful lot of joy to just go about and know that someone had an awful amount of fun having crafted these levels. Jumping across here, we can get a wee cool teddy bear Easter egg where they're sitting in with a burnt book and a Vault-Tec lunchbox. What did I win? A Nuka-Cade ticket. Well, when you win some, you lose some. Buff fighting Radix next to this guy with a gas mask. Clearly he knew in here was somewhere you didn't want to spend too much time, though a hazmat suit can be obtained. Pretty good. Okay, we're entering the main room now. It is here you'll do the bulk of your fighting. You'll be able to find Jezebel, and worst off, you will have to... the mannequins always creep me out, especially this one with jangles. Yeah, you'll have to fight your way through an awful lot of enemies, and the main one, the main boss of this entire operation, Ada. Ada isn't here at the moment because I'm not doing the quest, but he more or less looks like Ada. He's big, he's scary, and he's quite dangerous. Jezebel can be found here, and you can continue the whole conversation with her regarding the quest line. We won't delve too much into the quest itself. Instead, we're going to go up here and get yourself a beautiful missile launcher. We're going to want to deploy the wee catwalk, jump across, and you can see the Protectrons here. There were hordes of them. Now this is pre-war. The Rust Devils didn't place these here. They just simply opened them all. There is a missile launcher, some missiles, which could be useful if you're having a bit of trouble. Although if you're having trouble with this guy at this point, I don't think going up the stairs might help. Well, I suppose you can. You could do a wee gauntlet run across before he fully activates. If that's something you want to attempt to do, be my guest. Watch out for all these lasers. Bad things happen, such as grenade bouquets. And yeah, that can quickly ruin your day if you step into any of them. Now, there is a fusion core in here, one of the most important things to pick up. And yeah, it's a big, massive generator room, which would make sense. It is powering a massive satellite array. Now, this is like another part of the facility where they hold some of their military APCs. If you were to gain access into here, of course, using the wee terminal hangar, you can get another couple of power frames. In the back of this, there's some chems to keep you going during your battle with the remaining Rust Devils. How this APC flipped over is anyone's guess. Continuing on, they seem to have crafted a bit of a base around the APCs, which is a pretty neat thing to see. You can see we alien hiding underneath, trying to avoid everything that's going on. Another mannequin stuck in some tire trap with welding goggles. Again, it's all strange, but in a fantastic, amazing way. Right. So, after about 20 to 30 Rust Devil robots and raiders dead, you'll have to go through this wee gauntlet. Now, you can't dodge it all. Nah, well, you can attempt to. Although, a lot of them are placed near explosive barrels, so you can imagine what's going to happen to you. Now, if we move up to the final part, you can gain access to some terminals. They activate and deactivate a few things, but I knew when I get to this bit, I was going to always do this. Strike! Beautiful. Woo, a Doom Protectron. Cool. Except the soldier behind you seems to have a nice wee weapon and some ammunition. I don't think the robots went rogue, although it is implied if you're seeing the way all the bodies are lying about. I would say just complete anarchy took over and they were stuck. The facility went into lockdown and the soldiers really just couldn't get out. So most of them perished and were at their posts at the time. Maybe there was a wee bit of breakdown, you never know. Maybe some people turned on one another. It is quite a high possibility. Again, we're looping back over one of the main places we were in. And if we open up the next security gate, be sure to raid everything. There is so many items to find all over the place and weird sights like mannequins just sitting about staring. You know what? You creep me out. Boom. Headshot. Right. Let's continue on to the final room, where we actually look back over the tanks from the beginning. By the way, if you're wondering how the tanks get out, there is a massive door that I assume is it goes to either another tunnel or it's at the rear of the facility when you're out in the map and you just can't see it. It's outside of the map radius, or it's a rather large tunnel. Anyway, this is a Assaultron Gorgon, which is just beautiful. Look at that face. If I even got a point blank shot, which I missed, I dealt nothing. I tickled it at best. And then this big Rust Devil has some Tesla armor. So if you're looking at that, you know exactly where to find it. Last wee Easter egg mannequin. This one sitting here with wee fedora, some sunglasses and jet. Beautiful sights to be found in the bunker here. And just to kind of do a wee final loop, you can get a Fat Man if you can unlock the Expert Gate with 2 mini nukes. One of the best locations with them. Although, by the time you fight to them, you probably could have needed them. You probably could have used mini nukes a few times now. Open the final terminal, and this links you back out to where we came. Alright, so that pretty much covers Fort Hagen in its entirety. Or Hagen. I keep swapping between the two. If we zoom out, we've covered this whole vast area. So what's next? Well, as a wee bit of a prelude into our next location, we're going to go near Vault 81 in Diamond City and do the final unmarked location, which will be a wee lead on to the next episode. Let's go. Yes, the final unmarked location is a Joe Spucky's, the one just west of Diamond City. Now, this particular one has a few things I want to note. There are these drawer units, cupboards, that cannot be opened. However, inside them is bobby pin boxes and 10mm rounds. Unfortunately for us, the only thing you can really get is the bobby pin box, and that's if you are extremely delicate and you happen to just go through the little slit here. Now, you can raid the cash register, and you can see that the place was hiving when the bombs fell. Going all the way to the back, you can see a rather really dirty kitchen. I would say it probably wasn't the cleanest Joe Spunky's in the area, but we can see a few other things hiding behind these units. I've went through them, and again, I think someone forgot to take the units off so that you could actually gain access, because in here there is a first aid kit. Now, this one can again be accessed via this, but I don't think anyone would assume players would have the time nor patience to find something like that. It's very impressive if they did. It's a cool design concept, don't get me wrong. The first aid kit, I like that, but the 10mm rounds in here really make me think someone put these on and didn't mean to, or they were meant to be an open container, some way to open it, but in the end you didn't, or you can't. Okay, so we are on the map again, just north of Chestnut Hillock Reservoir. Our next episode will feature Diamond City, the rooftops in the surrounding area, and quite a lot of sites that I'm pretty sure you haven't seen yet. So hopefully you'll catch me over there, and thank you so much for watching.